Alright, time for one of L. Stone's / Artemis Fidel's controversial video topics. So, I made a video yesterday. I'm sure you checked it out over on my Artemis Fidel channel. If you have not already, be sure to check that out. About transgender children, and if I believe kids should be transitioning. Okay? So I just kind of want to talk a little bit about that here as well, because I think it is curious to know what you all think as well, and your own perspectives on the matter, because it is an interesting subject, especially since it's becoming like something that you just hear more and more about. Back when I was younger, you didn't hear about that. You didn't hear about kids doing that. And you're hearing more and more about it, and it's like one of those types of things. It makes you wonder. It's like, are more and more people starting to identify as this, or is it that more and more people are, as I say, feeling comfortable with themselves and being able to open up? I have a feeling it is the former, that there's more and more people identifying as this. And we've talked about this before. We've talked about the, I'll just say, population control type of thing when it comes to, gay people and transgender people. And I don't mean that discriminatory. I know people will construe those words, but what I mean is, from some of the things that I've seen, some of the studies and the science that I've seen with nature studies, it showed that when a population becomes higher in density, that in order for the natural way that it is controlled is by making creatures that are, not heterosexual. So they don't reproduce with people of the opposite sex. So they're gay or transgender, so they don't have that reproduction capability. You know what I mean? So that was just the nature thing that I was talking about there. I found that interesting, and I think, okay, that makes sense to me. That's understandable, because nature has its own ways of controlling things. It's human beings that disrupt it. Human beings go into there, just disrupt nature. They destroy nature. This isn't a story specifically about nature, but you understand what I'm saying here, okay? So when it comes to kids transitioning, this is where a lot of controversy is in play. Let me tell you this. From my own experience, I would never go back to my youth or my teenage years and say you should transition. You should medically transition. You should change your body. You should, do this sort of stuff. I mean, ideally, I think I could have definitely used help and support at the time, but I don't think a transition would have been wise for me. Because number one, when you transition at such a young age, how do you know? Some people do know, absolutely. And I think the only time, well, I'll get into that in just a moment. I think some people do know, because I'm sure a lot of transgender people, if you are transgender here, and you were really young, I'm sure that you knew before you were the age of 10. I think I knew when I was maybe like 8 years. No, I was probably younger than that, honestly. Yeah, I was probably pretty young. I don't remember when I really wanted to be a female. But if I had done it then, who knows what my life would have been like. The whole reason why my life is the way that it is right now is because I went through a lot of negativity. I went through a lot of abuse and pain and suffering to be able to be myself, to be happy with myself and who I am. So without that, I would not be the same person. I may, be someone who's ungrateful, who's not as thankful for these things. But because I did go through that hard time, I am much more capable of being happy and experiencing happiness, which I feel as though a lot of people take for granted. So, it's just, when you're that young, when you're a kid, you're not going to know what's best for you. You may know what's best for you right then in the moment, until you actually do it. Maybe like, oh no, I don't like this now. Years later, what happens then? How do you know? You don't know. And I would say, let me tell you this, the only way I think that a child should medically transition is if there's some way to prove that they are trans. How do you prove it? Apparently there's something with like the brain, or there's something along those lines. So if you can prove it without a doubt, then by all means, that child should get, treatment, or under other rare circumstances where treatment may be necessary. But for the most part, I personally view it as any parent who's going to subject their kid to, all of this, transgender, trying to transition, just because they say, oh, I feel like a female. Okay, time for you to transition, and kind of exploiting their child. Like, I'm sure you've seen it. Some of the exploitation that is done with these children and these parents to kind of gain fame. I've seen it. Oh, look, my child is on a magazine cover because she's trans. How to make her, so special and unique. And it's like, no, that is exploitation of your child. And all that sort of stuff is considered child abuse. It may not look like it on the surface, but it is. It is. It's a different type of child abuse, but it is. Definitely is. So I don't like that exploitation there. Another thing is, I don't like kids being exposed to, all this gender identity and sexual orientation stuff when they're so young. They don't care or need to know about that sort of stuff. They don't need to go to, kindergarten, first grade, and second grade and be taught, hey, there are some men that identify as women. There are some women who identify as men. There are some men who are attracted to men. There are some women who are attracted to women. There should be none of that conversation happening, because it's not relevant then. It doesn't matter then. It's like, this is a child who is not even gone through, not even close to puberty yet, who doesn't really care about that sort of stuff. They will find themselves in whoever they are and whoever they're attracted to. But the fact that they would be educated on these subjects, I don't think that needs education at that age. I think when you're older, it's fine. Like if you're entering into your teenage years, that is perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with that. But when you're younger than that and you're being exposed to this, I think that can have an impact as well. Because let me take this, and this is what I'm comparing it to with myself as well. Two things with me. We hear about transgender being something that you're just born as transgender. And I do believe that. I do believe for some people, probably even the majority of people, who knows, because there's no way to actually prove it with like a brain scan or anything. I feel as though most people are transgender because of how they were born, because of how the hormones in the womb, but before you're born, they change your mind, they change your brain, they change your body, and then you were supposed to be born into a female body, but you were born into a male body, but your brain is still female. If that makes sense. I mean, that is like the easiest explanation I can give, and that makes the most sense to me. Okay, I do believe that. But on the other end of the spectrum, there are plenty of people who have gone through abuse, such as myself, who end up being transgender. Are a result of the abuse that they went through. That's what we have to rule out. Or this new thing that's coming into play, with being exposed to, this transgender media that these kids are exposed to, and they think that would be cool, that would be nice to do, and they start to identify, they start to associate their personality with it, even though they may not actually be that way. I'm just saying, it's just interesting, because for me personally, I think if I did not go through the trauma that I went through, all the abuse that I went through, hating myself because of what I had went through, I very well may not even be transgender. I'm just going to put that out there. I've mentioned that before. I've said that before, but I don't know. I'm not going to rule it out because I don't know. I don't have a clue. I don't know if I had not gone through that horrendous abuse and neglect and abandonment and all that sort of stuff, that I would not be transgender. I don't know. But the other thing is also, I remember when I was also young, there was like this movie about drag queens or whatever that I found interesting, that I said, that's going to be me when I grow up. Was I influenced by the media I was consuming there? I was watching this, whatever it was, a movie or a show or whatever, about a man who was dressing as a woman, and then his family like disowns him or whatever. At a young age, mind you, I was pretty young, and I was like, that's going to be me when I get older. Was I influenced by that? I don't know. Look, I can't say a definite no or yes, and I don't think anyone else here can answer that either. You may be thinking, no, I don't think you were. Maybe you were. You don't know the answer either. Okay, so I don't know, and it doesn't matter at this point, because whatever the case is, I've transitioned. I cannot reverse that. Physically, to a degree, I cannot go back to that. Not that I would want to go back to that, but I'm just saying, if that was a choice for me back then, and I did it out of error, then I would imagine by this point I would be like, oh my gosh, regrets. I must go back. And I think for some transgender people, even if it is a legitimate transition, meaning like they were actually born, in the wrong body, so to speak, it's a biological type of thing, then they may still have regrets, okay? You can't neglect that does not happen, because it does happen. It really does, especially with people who are younger who transition, because they don't know. So I'm curious to know your thoughts on this subject matter. Let me know what you think about this, whatever you agree or disagree with here, and I'm just really curious. So you all take care, have a great one, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.